It's Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome, everybody. Another explosive edition of Cageside with John Morgan. I am your host, Eric McMahon. Now, let's set the docket for today because there is a lot to talk about. If you thought Francis Ngannou was going to remain a free agent for a while longer like I did, you would be wrong. If you thought Dana White or John Jones was going to stay quiet on this subject and not have an opinion, you would be wrong. A lot of big fights announced. BMF title will be back on the line. McGregor, Michael Chandler, potential date set, and Aljo is confirmed, even though he says he's still dealing with injuries. To help us break down all of this, John Morgan, my man. You can follow him on Twitter, JohnMorgan_MMA. What's up, pal?
Man, it's a busy week. You just started laying it all out there. Normally, it feels like the pay-per-view weeks, right? That's when there's all the storylines, all the fallout, what's next, what's coming up. But, man, so much going on right now, man. So I can't wait to get into it.
So let's just start with what literally shook the MMA world last week. And it was kind of snake bitten. We had just got done recording our show literally an hour later. I think the New York Times was one who first broke it, that Francis Ngannou signs with the PFL. Now, I want to break down all the reports, right? Because there's a lot of things out there. Not a lot is completely confirmed and or denied. So Francis Ngannou is saying his own thing. The PFL is putting out statements. Then sports writers are adding their own opinions onto it. This is what we know so far. He will be allowed to box, non-exclusive to PFL. Will fight in the pay-per-view super fight division. He will serve as the PFL global athlete on the Global Athlete Advisory Board, and he will be a chairman and equity owner in the PFL Africa. According to reports, contract is for 2 or 3 fights. I don't know, 2 or 3. High 7-figure per fight. What constitutes high? I don't know. He has the rights to his own sponsorship in the cage. And he said on his YouTube channel, PFL didn't say this, Francis Ngannou said this, on his YouTube page, that his opponents will receive a minimum of $2 million to fight him. I don't know where to start. John Morgan, where would you like to start?
Man, there's so much to it because you're right. It's the most unique deal that we've ever seen in the history of mixed martial arts for any free agent. When you talk about all those different aspects of it, and it seems like it's pretty much exactly what Francis Ngannou wanted. I mean, it was kind of the things that he was saying from the beginning that he was looking out for. This is a dream deal for him. It seems like he literally locked in everything. I mean, he's going to get the fighting aspect of it, which obviously we all want to see him compete again in MMA. We kind of knew that PFL would probably be a good fit for him because, you know, you're paying a guy that kind of money, you're going to want to be able to do pay-per-view, and that's what PFL is trying to do, is really get into the pay-per-view business. So that's awesome. He gets the opportunity to box. Now, he doesn't have a boxing match lined up yet, but there's that opportunity at least out there with those big names, which could be a big revenue driver. The minimum guarantee for the opponent is amazing and just absolutely guarantees that there's going to be a ton of people that are putting their hands in the air. I mean, I've seen Ben Rothwell. I love Big Ben. Yeah, right. We'll jump in there and do it. I'll get in there for $2 million. Francis can knock me out for $2 million. We'll do it. I mean, there's going to be no shortage of people volunteering to do that. So that's an amazing thing. I think, honestly, maybe potentially one of the biggest things of it all is this chairman of PFL Africa and to be on this global board of advisors. I mean, he's not only guaranteeing himself some big paydays coming up, but he's also setting himself up for life after fighting. I mean, this is just, it's an incredible deal. For Francis Ngannou, this is an incredible deal.
It is. It sounds like it is, right?
Could be.
It definitely sounds like it does. Now, there's a couple little things that, as a businessman, I need to talk business. For those of you who don't know, aside from working for the Grizzlies, I also own and a bunch of fitness kickboxing gyms, right? And so a love for my sport and then dialing in the business aspect are 2 completely separate deals. So I want to start with high 7 figures. It is such a precarious statement. It's going to be high 7 figures. What constitutes high 7 figures? I would say that Floyd Mayweather money is high 7 figures. I doubt he's getting that. I don't know what that means. And they're just throwing it out there maybe to sound good. I don't know. Well, actually, Conor McGregor, 100 or high 7 figures would be what, $9 million a fight?
Yeah, we had heard that the UFC was offering around $8 million for the John Jones fight. So, maybe it's around that six. I mean, you're so right. It could be a big range. Is six high? I mean, it's over the midpoint. Is 8, 9? I mean, look, we're still counting in the millions, so it's a nice payday, but you're right. We don't know exactly where that lands.
Okay. Rights to his own sponsors. That's what a lot of fighters have always wanted. Good for him. Bam.
Even though sponsorship dollars are drying up a little bit, so there's not massive paydays out there. But I do agree. I think athletes should at least have that ability to go chase their own sponsors. I think the UFC should be able to give like one small little area, just one, maybe one patch on the shorts or something, just one spot. You could put whatever you want there. I mean, pending approval and pending it doesn't go against our official sponsors.
Yeah, it can't be the condomdepot.com like it was before.
Exactly. But so that is a good thing. Now, again, because I think you said it right. It could be a big deal, but these are things that aren't necessarily guarantees. But it's nice that he at least has the option to go chase that opportunity.
Now, the devil is in the details in a lot of these things, and obviously we're not privy to that. But when, he says it's for a 2 or 3 fight contract, this is where it starts getting murky for me. Is that fights? Yeah, 2 or 3 fights, but does the contract on the advisory board end at the end of his fights? Does the chairman and equity owner stake end at the end of his contract with fights for PFL Africa? There's a lot of things in there that I don't know. And I'm just kind of like, when I'm reading it, my mind just kind of starts going like, sounds really, really good. But I would assume that a PFL would put in a ripcord where they could pull it when they want.
Yeah. And I've seen some people say, and correctly so, what is the percentage value of something that's losing money, right? You know what I mean? Like, okay, you've got an equity stake in something that's not profitable right now. What does that really do? But it is still nice to have equity. Mm-hmm. I mean, to really feel like you're in on something, because I do love this global vision that the PFL has, right? I mean, they've already launched PFL Europe. They're talking about, PFL Middle East, obviously PFL Africa, PFL Asia, PFL South America. And I think it's smart because it puts a localized product in those regions, right? I mean, obviously the UFC is still the big player in the sport, but I mean, even look at like Europe, man, those fans, they got to stay up to like 4 o'clock in the morning to watch big fights. I mean, it's insane. So if you can put something on in prime time, that's catered to you and your audience, I mean, that's awesome. So I love what they're doing. And it is nice for Francis Ngannou to have a piece of that, to feel like he's really a partner in this. He has an equity stake in it, but what is that value right now? It doesn't really have a lot of value right now. But again, this is about working as a partner for the future.
Yeah, and is that just taking a kind of a path that the UFC is already opening up performance institutes in, Asia, in Mexico? And I assume that they are just broadening that horizon every day with other things. So with them saying this global expansion for PFL, would that be the same way that the UFC is planning on doing it?
Well, I think theirs is a little bit different because they're going to try to bring regionalized content as well. Like the UFC is obviously a global sport. I mean, just look at the number of nations that are represented on the roster. Right. But, that pay-per-view still comes on Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. You know what I mean? If that's, 5 a.m. your time, wherever you are, sorry, that's just what it is. And what the PFL is doing is they're saying, look, we're going to, have stuff in prime time in each of these markets. We'll have it with people look at like the Dan Hardy hiring with PFL Europe, right? A very, very known name over there, a great representative of the sport in the European market. And he's going to kind of be that figurehead. And I shouldn't even say figurehead because he's doing a lot of work. He's going to be that representative of it. And then the way they see it working is you'll have these regional tournaments around the globe, and the winner of those tournaments will win some money. Yes, but they'll also earn their way up to the global roster and the global tournaments. They keep calling it like the Champions League of MMA. They kind of compare it to like the soccer system or football, depending on where you are around the world, where you have that promotion relegation type thing, right? Like you start out local, but you win there, and then you make your way up to the big time. So it is following the UFC footprint in terms of, expanding around the globe, but I think they're doing it in hyper local ways in each of these markets, which I think is a smart business plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do like it, creating regional competition, kind of like, a lot of regional promotions do it here. You know what I mean? CFFC is running shows in all over, few different markets right now that you commentate for. They're bringing in a lot of that local talent into that to then hope to then create them as title challengers to their more bigger events, maybe say at the Seminole Hard Rock or things of that nature. So I do like that. I think that's pretty cool. Another thing that, devil's in the details. We'll fight in the pay-per-view super fight division. That's one that I think has a lot of potential. But I'm confused about that because I think we're going to have to get back to that after we discuss what Dana White has had to say. Okay, so let's just put a pin in that really quick. Because if you think Dana White was going to sit idle and not say anything, you are wrong. Now, Dana White a lot of times doesn't come out and say it first. He will have somebody ask him a question, and then he is off and running. I know you've heard it, Mr. Morgan.
Yep,
I have heard it. And for all of you out there in video land and podcast land, if you have not heard it, we got a treat for you. You are about to hear it. Let's roll.
We also got to ask about Francis Ngannou going to PFL. I'm just curious about your thoughts on that deal.
Based on what I know about the deal, which is not much, it makes no sense to me. I mean, you're going to pay a guy not to fight for a year, and it's already been like 18 months. He's fought 3 times in the last 3 years. It's just not what we do here. It's not what we do. And the day that we released him, I knew exactly what was going to happen. And Francis wants to take 0 risks. Doesn't want to take any chances. And he obviously didn't want to take a chance against John Jones. And after we saw what happened with Cyril Gane, I don't blame him. I think the outcome would have been exactly the same. And I'm sure most of you do, and I'm sure Francis does too. And the media makes it sound like that I'm saying that he's afraid of him. I don't think that he's afraid of anybody. It's just the fact that he doesn't want to take any risk. He wants to, PFL's going to pay this guy to train for a boxing match that may not even happen and that they might not even be involved in. How does that make any sense? It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, Anthony Joshua called it a gimmick fight this week. When asked about that fight, he's like, I'm focused on fighting the best guys in the world. I'm not interested in a gimmick fight right now. And that's one of the big problems with boxing right now is it's all about these gimmicky type fights. And that's just not what I do here. It's not what I do. I put on fights with the best fighters in the world and fights that people want to see. Francis could have done a deal here. Hunter threw the kitchen sink at that guy, Hunter went to more dinners with Francis Ngannou and did everything in his power to try to get this fight done. And, Francis just thinks that he's in a position where he's got some Conor McGregor-Mayweather fight on his hands, which he does not. That fight was like a once-in-a-lifetime type deal. Fight that I wasn't very interested in. But at the end of the day, it became so big. The right guys, the right time, the right place. The fans wanted it. So we did it, and we got it done. MMA guys versus boxers doesn't make any sense to me. But I know that he thinks there's all this money in it. I disagree. I don't think there is. And I have no beef with the PFL. I mean, these guys have always been super professional and, never talked any smack. You know me. If I don't like you, whether it's De La Hoya or another, organization out there, whatever it is, I don't hold back. I'll let you have it. But, what they're doing makes no sense to me. Their business strategy. I'm hearing that they're raising money right now, 280 million, 300 million, I don't know what the number is, from the Middle East. And I've done a lot of business in the Middle East. Those guys are sharp, and they know what to do. I don't know who in the hell would give them $280 million because I'm hearing they're buying Bellator, right? So you're an organization that's burning cash, have no ratings and selling no tickets, and you're going to raise $280 million to buy a company that's burning cash, sells no tickets, and does no ratings. It sounds fucking absolutely genius to me. And I don't know. I know how this story ends. I get what Francis is doing. I wish the PFL all the luck in the world. I wish him all the luck in the world. It's just not what we do here. You know, right now when you think about it, he's going to this company. I don't know what they're paying him or what's going on or any of that stuff. He's not even fighting their champions. You know what I mean? He wants to box. He signs with this company, and he's not even willing to fight their champions right now. He's fought 3 times in the last 3 years, and it's been like 18 months since he's fought, and from what I'm hearing, he's not going to fight for another year. All the stuff that's being talked about, it's all bullshit by the media. The media is creating all this bullshit. It's like, I had to listen to this fucking Robin Black, who looks like he came out of a fucking 1997 fucking time warp, talking shit. If anybody needs a makeover, somebody please help that dude. Get him, what's that show on TV? Major Makeover or whatever the fuck it is. Somebody sign Robin Black up for that thing. This guy's out there talking all this shit about, you know, oh, we're just all about marketing, not the best fighters in the world, and all this really stupid shit. So a lot of this stuff's just coming from the media. But when you think about Francis, you know, their last champion, or maybe it was his current champion, lost to Tybura, right? And then the champion now, I think, lost to Yuri Prohaska in the first round, who isn't even a heavyweight. Francis doesn't want to fight these 2 guys now. Am I the only one that this whole thing is just a bunch of bullshit? So that's my 2 cents.
So Dana White is Dana White. That's why we love him. And/or a lot of people hate him. That's why I love him. You're not going to meet a more transparent head of any organization. You're not going to meet it in the NBA, in the NFL, MLB, NHL, any of them. But you have it here in this sport with Dana White, and love him or hate him, you have to respect that he's transparent about what he thinks and feels.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and that some people love him for that and some people hate him for that. It's kind of interesting, right? I mean, some people, I think, want him to take that more polished, professional, league head approach that you would see from the major sports, where it's like they're going to say a whole lot of words that really don't mean anything because they're going to be as straight down the middle as they can without stirring up any controversy. With Dana White, he's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind because he literally does not care what kind of criticism you're going to lob back his way. So I think in a lot of ways, it's made him become a beloved figure. In a lot of ways, it's made people absolutely hate his guts, but that's Dana White.
I love it, but Dana White has never attacked me personal, so I think until he does, I may just stay where I'm at, you know? So, and as a journalist, I mean, you have to love it probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you know you're going to get like Dana White is never going to sit down and you're going to walk away thinking, well, what am I going to write about? What am I going to talk about? Like, he's going to give you something, you know what I mean? You know, some of his rants, you know, attacking Robin Black and his personal look and that sort of thing. It's like, come on, man. Is that really necessary? Like, if you want to attack somebody's viewpoints and you want to talk about why you think their opinion is wrong, like, I get that. Some of the personal attacks sometimes, it's like, that's a bit much. But yeah, as far as anybody in that room that's got a camera rolling or that their job is made by talking about, you know, points and stuff, you're going to get it when Dana White sits down. That's for sure.
All right, now let's break down a couple of things he said, right? And I luckily for me, I have a transcript here, so it'll be able to go. Based on what I know about the deal, which is not much, it makes no sense to me. You're going to pay the guy not to fight for a year, and it's already been like 18 months. He fought 3 times in the last 3 years. It's just not what we do here. It's not what we do. The day we released him, I knew exactly what was going to happen. Okay, so it's not what they do here, right? We're not going to let somebody sit idly on the stand. And what he is essentially saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is he's not going to let, in the UFC, him being the UFC, is not going to let somebody sit idly by and completely hold up a division and not take the fights with the number one contenders and or who the fans want to see him fight. Would I be correct in saying that is exactly what he's talking about?
I think that's a big part of it. It's also a part of, hey, if we're going to let you go box, we got to be involved in that too. How am I going to let somebody that I have under contract, that I'm spending my money on marketing, that I'm spending my money on paying, how am I going to go let them have their services elsewhere? And I think that's a big part of it as well. I mean, you think about, because everybody compares this to Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, which to me was kind of a once-in-a-generation type thing, right? I mean, I never thought the matchup was going to be that competitive, but you had two cultural icons in combat sports going up against each other. But for the UFC to get involved in that, they said, listen, we got to get our beak wet a little bit too. You got to give us a little taste of that. You know what I mean? We got to make some money here. If we're going to take a guy that we helped market, that we helped develop, that we helped build his platform, if we're going to allow him to go compete elsewhere, we have to be compensated for that as a business. Take the emotion out of it. As you said, take the emotion out of all this. Look at it as a business. They're going to say, look, if he's going to go compete elsewhere, we got to get a little taste of that as well. And as a business owner, whether you like it or not, the terms of the deal, you kind of have to understand that.
Okay, moving on. I don't think that he's afraid of anybody, White said. It's just the fact that he doesn't want to take any risk. PFL is going to pay this guy to train for a boxing match that may not even happen and they may not be involved in. What you were alluding to. How does that make any sense? It doesn't make sense to me. Now, you just literally touched on that subject. And I want to go back to his previous statement too, of saying he's only fought 3 times in 3 years and he hasn't fought in 18 months and he's not going to fight again for another year. Okay. So they're essentially paying this guy just as a figurehead, I would assume at this point. And that's not what the UFC does. That is a little, I do agree. That doesn't make much sense, but I'm not the one footing the bill. But on the other end of the spectrum, Mr. White, I would disagree here. The amount of clicks that the PFL is getting right now, so it could be a nice little return on investment.Maybe that's why they're paying him. But from a promoter standpoint, I get it. You're paying this guy not to fight? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, there's a couple things here, and I think you hit on this. First of all, I do like the fact that he said, I know he's not afraid. If you're a fan or an observer of the sport and you look at anybody on the roster and you say that guy's afraid of so-and-so, your opinion has just been completely devalued because nobody is afraid. Now, do certain people realize there are stylistic matchups that aren't best for them? And do they say, hey, I would rather take this because it's a bigger name, et cetera, et cetera. But look, I think you hit the nail on the head there. They say, look, this is not what we do. The UFC is the industry leader. They're the one that created this entire, passion for mixed martial arts, right? 1993, obviously they started the mixed martial arts as we know it today. Then you talk about the Zuffa era and all the things that changed. They've never had to go chase after anybody because they were the dominant brand in the sport. I think what the PFL does. So I said how great this deal is for Francis Ngannou, and I really do think it's a home run deal for Francis Ngannou. Now, for the PFL, do I think they're going to profit off this deal? I don't think so, man. I don't think they're getting their money back. I don't think they're going to generate enough revenue off a pay-per-view to pay Francis Ngannou. And imagine, their next pay-per-view, they're going to probably want to put Francis Ngannou on there. They're going to hope Kayla Harrison is still around. They're going to try to get Jake Paul on there. I mean, there's so much money that they're going to have to pay out. I don't think that they're going to make their money back on this deal, but you talk about running a business. I don't think they're necessarily looking at this as we've got to profit off this. It's a loss leader, right? Like, look at the amount of media we're getting. Look at the amount of attention we're getting. Look at the amount of maybe potential investment money from other people that want to come get involved because they see what we're doing. They like what we're doing. I think the PFL, and I could be wrong, I'm not in these meetings, but there are a bunch of smart people that have been around big businesses. I think they realize, too, we are not going to make money on this deal. However, we are going to set ourselves up for the next move. And so I think for Dana to say, hey, that's not what we do, I think he's being honest. But I think he also has to understand he's never been in that position of being the second or third biggest promotion where, dude, we've got to get attention. How do we get attention? We might have to overspend a little bit to get somebody in here because it's worth it for us. So he's right that they've never had to do it, but they've never been in a position where they had to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the UFC has leveraged a lot, but they leveraged on their product not on name value. And I think there's a big difference there. You look at, they leveraged to the hilt on the Ultimate Fighter 1 on their product and showcasing their product, which was awesome, man. I'm so glad they did it. It opened up the eyes to so many people, which was freaking amazing. But I want to go back in that last statement as saying, you know, Francis Ngannou is not about taking risks. I don't think, if you are completely objective, that nobody can kind of disagree with that statement, right? There was every opportunity in the world to show that he was the baddest man on the planet and taking on Jon Jones. There was an opportunity, and he was going to get paid big time generational wealth to do it. He decided not to. Yep. And for that, I think that jaded Dana White personally, and where a lot of this comes from. But it doesn't mean that Dana is wrong. Dana's right. He's not scared of Jon Jones. But Francis Ngannou is looking at it as like, I'm a kind of a cultural icon. Where my story started, what I had to endure, the doors that I'm opening up for people, I don't want to risk it facing arguably the greatest fighter that ever lived and making look foolish, possibly. Yeah. And so, yes, he didn't want to take that risk. And I agree with Dana. Like, Dana is right. And anybody that disagrees with it, I'm going to call you crazy because Dana is 100% right. But Francis probably had good reason for it, but doesn't mean that Dana's wrong.
No, the thing is, like, you're going to get absolutely skewered for it, but I agree with you as well. Because what I've seen a lot of people say is, hold on, man, this dude that migrated from the sand mines of Africa to you know, live on the streets of France to try to chase it, he's risk adverse. He doesn't like taking risks. That's not what Dana is alluding to at all. He's not talking about the character of everything that Francis Ngannou got. It's like, look, a lot of, and this has happened before, right? I mean, go back to the Randy Couture situation. I mean, where Randy was like, look, I don't want to get paid on the back end. I don't want to, like, know that I get a percentage of sales. Tell me what I'm going to make up front and guarantee me that money. And that's what Dana is saying, is like, look, I'm not going to guarantee you $30 million for this fight that you want against Jon Jones. But I'll tell you what, if you go into business with us as a pay-per-view partner, I truly believe this is going to be one of the biggest pay-per-views in the history of the sport. And we will blow it up. We will make it incredible. We will turn the machine on. We'll have you on SportsCenter every night. We'll have all the promotions. And I think we'll do, you know, 2.5 million buys. I think we'll do 3 million buys. And if we do 3 million buys, you will get that money that you're looking at. But you got to take a chance. You got to roll the dice with us. You got to say that you're going into business with us. And if I win, you win, because we're all in this thing together. And I think Francis has said, no. And look, he's not the first person to say this. They're like, no, I'm going in there and putting my health and safety on the line. I want to know what I'm making when I walk in there. I want you to guarantee my money up front. And that's where the heads start colliding, because the UFC will say, no, I mean, yes, we'll give you some money on the front end. Of course, we'll guarantee you something to get in there, but you are a business partner with us on this pay-per-view, and you will get paid on the success of it. Do you not want to take that chance with us? Because if you believe in yourself, if you believe this fight is as big as you think it is, then just know that you will profit just like we do on the back end. And I know that's not a popular notion. I know the fans don't want to hear that, man. They want to say, no, Dana White, Scrooge McDuck in there. What are you doing? Pay the man his money. But he's saying, no, we go into business together. And if this thing is successful as we all think it will be, we'll all make money together.
Yeah, I mean, there's that aspect to it, of course. But if you're going to tell me also on the same time that Dana White is saying you're risk averse from taking the Jon Jones fight because you probably think you're going to lose, like, that's exactly what he's saying. Well, because let's fast forward, right? Me and you both said that we thought that stylistically Jon Jones was a horrendous matchup for Francis Ngannou.
Yes.
And I think anybody who really knows the sport knows that Francis had one path to victory. Jon Jones had many. Okay. Right. So it's a bad matchup for Ngannou. And that's what Dana White, in my opinion, is saying right there. You don't want to take the risk because you have done such a good job. And it's kind of almost a backhanded compliment to a degree in a weird way as well. Because, Francis, you have done such a good job of elevating your profile, elevating your stature, elevating your brand, that now you have it at the mountaintop and now you're unwilling to risk it. Yeah. I think that's what he's saying in a nutshell.
You know what occurs to me right now is that I think the problem with this situation is that most people want to figure out who's right and who's wrong. and it's totally possible that both guys are right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Francis, you know, Dana's like, hey, this is the way we run our business. If you want to be a part of it, we love it. You know, whereas Francis saying, hey, good for you, but I found a better deal over here. And it is. I think it's a better deal for Francis. Again, I don't know if the PFL is going to make money off of it, but I don't think the PFL cares if they make money off of it because they're looking at getting, I mean, look at the discussion. How much time have we ever spent this much time talking about the PFL? Has anybody, you know, in MMA media spent as much time talking about PFL as they had as of late? Absolutely not. So, I mean, it's possible that there's nobody wrong in this situation, that everybody just played it the right way for their business and their own interests.
Yeah. At the end of the day, for Francis, there's when you make any decision, anybody at any time, any decision that is made, subconsciously, you're doing a cost benefit analysis. It's what it is. I'm making a decision to just do whatever I want to do. Turn on my computer and knock out my emails or go watch TV. Where's the cost benefit analysis? I can compute it subconsciously. So Francis, by saying, in my opinion, am I going to fight John Jones for a determined dollar amount? After everything I've built in my career, everything I've overcome, what's the cost benefit analysis when I know I can get something better on the open market, but I might take a little bit of ridicule, but yet I have the principle to stand off that I'm the walking away as a champion who never lost it. There's a cost benefit analysis going there. Dana White's calling him on it, right? That's what I think he's doing. But we could literally talk that point of the risk averse all day long. And to your point, everybody could be right.
I agree. It's wild.
Everybody,
it's a wild situation. I think it's going to work out just fine for everybody. I really do. I think this thing worked out the way that everybody wanted it to work out. Unfortunately, you know who it doesn't work out for? Fans, us, because I wanted to see Francis Ngannou versus John Jones. There's no way we're ever going to see that. You know, the UFC is not going to co-promote. They're especially not going to co-promote now. I mean, you know, Dana White in that rant kind of said that he's okay with the PFL, and they've been kind of professional.
Well, we're gonna. I have quotes right now, Mr. Morgan.
Okay, all right, let's go.
All right, jumping the shark here a little bit. Moving on, where he talks about boxing and that Conor McGregor, Floyd was a once in a lifetime thing. I agree with him. So we'll skip over kind of the boxing. This is where it gets. If it wasn't interesting yet, it gets super interesting now. I have no beef with the PFL, White said. These guys have always been super professional and never talked any smack. You know me. If I don't like you, whether it's Oscar De La Hoya or another organization or whoever it is, I don't hold back. I'll let you have it. What they're doing makes no sense to me. Their business strategy. I'm hearing that they're raising money right now, 280, 300 million. I don't know what the number is from the Middle East. I've done a lot of business in the Middle East. Those guys are sharp. I don't know who the hell would give them 280 million. And he goes on to saying he's hearing they're buying Bellator, yada, yada, yada. The interesting thing here, I have no problem with the PFL. They've always been professional. Now I'm going to go in. Now I'm going to go all in. And do you think Dana White is thinking he's actually really talking smack to them, kind of downgrading their product, saying that, they don't sell tickets, they have no revenue, so on, so forth? Or do you think he's just like, hey, you guys can see for yourself what their product is and what our product is? In a weird way, I don't think Dana White is talking smack. He's just transparent in what he feels. And he doesn't feel like he's necessarily taking a personal shot at them. I just look at it, he's saying, here are the gate receipts. Here are the metrics on clicks. Here are the ratings. You think anybody's going to give him $280, $300 million? They've been professional, though. They're nice guys.
I think you're right. I don't think he means to necessarily talk trash. I really do honestly think he's just like, look, here's my honest assessment of where their business position is right now. How do you think this is going to work? There could be, now we say this, that Dana White doesn't really care about what people say about him, and that is 100% true. I can tell you, I've been dealing with the man for a long time. He literally does not care. Has the thickest skin of anybody I've ever met in my life. Does not care what anybody says about him. However, there are certain
Oscar.
people that Oscar brothers below. But there are certain people that he does care about their opinion, and that would be his broadcast partners, right? And I do think there is the part that, look, PFL is on ESPN, right? It is on the ESPN family of networks. The pay-per-view was promoted through, ESPN Plus pay-per-view. So it doesn't do him any good to go too hard, right? Because there are technically part of the same family. So if he's going to just absolutely trash them, then, I could see ESPN executives coming to them and saying, hey, bro, we still got people. We got to try to get people to tune into this thing too. And we got you up here just trying to bury it. Be careful a little bit. So maybe that's why he's towing the line a little bit, but I really don't think he thought he was talking trash. I think he's just saying, look, this is where they stand. How does this make any sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me. Now, again, that's coming from the position of somebody that's always been in the power position, that's always been in the lead of this, entire industry. So, they don't have to worry about how do we make noise? How do we get attention? How do we get people to talk about us when we know they're going to talk about the UFC regardless? So I think he has to understand that he's not in that same position they are. But I am wondering if that position on I'm not trying to trash the PFL is going to change here very soon.
Let me set this up because we were leading to this point. Dana White, these guys have been always professional. I don't have any problem with them. They're nice guys. Take it how you worth. The president, the chairman, however you want to refer to him, of the PFL takes to Twitter to give, I don't know about his response, but maybe just a general overview statement. Mr. Morgan, can you set this up? Because you were the one who informed me of this.
Yeah, so Don Davis is the chairman and the founder of the PFL, and Don is a good dude, and he does not mind stirring the pot a little bit, man. He's a fun guy to talk to, and he'll lay it out there too. He's kind of like Dana White in that way that he'll just lay out his numbers and the way he sees things. And the thing he has no qualms, no care at all about how people get it. But I'm a little interested that he decided to go this in because Dana White comes out and says, I have no problem with these guys. They're professional. Well, Don Davis yesterday tweets, where MMA companies spend, and it's a little money bag emoji. So where MMA companies spend money, PFL spends money on fighters, UFC spends money on marketing. Smart insights from Robin Black. And that was a retweet of the video that had clearly angered UFC President Dana White to the point that he was insulting Robin Black. Well, he follows that up, doubles it down on Monday where he says, and this is interesting, it's a quote, he says, quote, Netflix is not even on our radar screen in terms of competition, end quote, Blockbuster CEO 2008. New quote, what PFL is doing makes no sense to me, end quote, UFC President 2023. So he's trying to, I mean, if you're of a certain age like myself and Eric, you remember when you would go to Blockbuster CEO.
Best day of the week.
Oh, man, you would go pick your VHS tapes up. You grab a couple UFCs off the thing there, the new release. You take it home, you watch it. This Netflix things comes out, and you're like, what? I'm going to get DVDs sent to my house? What? Now we're streaming. And now there's not a Blockbuster anywhere in existence anymore, right?
Actually, I think there's one. I think there's one left.
There's like one left. And that's what, Don Davis is alluding to. Is that, okay, you think we're out there on the outskirts right now where this little thing that doesn't matter, that you don't care about. And they've said this from the beginning. Like, look, we're here to disrupt the industry. You think we don't matter? You don't think we don't make sense? Just keep watching and see what happens. Now, that's a bold statement. And I appreciate
He's keeping receipts right now.
Look, I appreciate that fact. Dana used to get criticized all the time when he would say, I believe mixed martial arts will be the biggest sport on the planet one day. And people would be like, bro, you don't even understand how big soccer is. Like, what are you even talking about? But I always used to say, like, if somebody's running a company, do you want that person running the company to be like, yeah, I think maybe we could be like number 3, number 4, something like that? No, you want to have the vision up at the top. And so I appreciate that Don Davis has that same self-belief in his company and his strategy. But it is interesting because there's one thing we know about Dana White, it is if you want to be a friend, if you want to leave him alone, that's fine. It coexists. If you want to go against him, if you want to make a direct attack on him, he will be your worst enemy, and he will go out of his way to bury you. I mean, he will step over what he needs to be focusing on in order to focus on burying you. So I find it interesting that Dana did, yes, talk a little bit bad about the PFL, but said, but I like these guys. They're pro. PFL comes back and says, you know what? We're poking the bear. Let's have at it. Let's go.
And this leads to, you got to look at the Disney Corporation and all of this, who owns ESPN, right? And do you think these boardroom guys are just throwing their hands up in the air and saying, these are two of our partners on the same network that we're paying them to be on this platform, and now they are deciding to go to war with each other, or that has the potential to go to war? What kind of problems would that be? Because I can assure you, Uncle Dana, I like to refer to him as Uncle Dana. Uncle Dana probably has the clout where he can go to ESPN and say, listen, this contract ends in 2 years. Do you want to treat me this way? Do you want to allow people to do this? Like, this is a dicey game that could be played right here.
Oh, 100%. Because, look, at the end of the day, the business world, obviously, it is about protecting your brand reputation. You don't want to say anything that, might put the entire company in some kind of bad position. But when you are printing money the way the UFC is, when you are just the absolute behemoth, you know what I mean? It's like if you're, the NFL of football versus, every other thing out there, it's just the gap between number one and number two is so massive that, I think you can swing it around a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. You can talk a little trash, you can do that, and he can get away with it. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, the UFC is very clearly in a position of power. As long as they're not saying anything that is, staining the company itself, I don't think they're going to get involved too much.
Yeah, I just look at it. It's like when Dana is going to press a partner, being at ESPN. Hey, I can take this product. We're with Endeavor now. You can get WWE now on this platform. Or, hey, listen, if you're going to have my competition sitting next to me on this same one that is now picking a fight with me, taking my talent, I'm going to Amazon. I'm going to this unless you, ESPN, Disney, do something about it. I am going to be excited to see how this unfolds.
I am too. Because if you're the PFL, you probably don't mind him talking trash about you a little much, right? I mean, you're sitting back going, guess what? It's his airtime on his event, and he's talking about us. So that means other people are talking about us. It's a dangerous game to play, right? I mean, it's that, even if it's bad attention, it's still attention to you. It's a dangerous game to play, but it is one that, again, if you're in that position of like, we're not in the driver's seat, we're trying to scratch and claw and make our way up the list and get people to talk about us. Maybe even if they're talking trash, we don't care because they're still talking. So I'm interested if this relationship is about to take a turn. I don't know if the next time Dana's going to be like, yeah, I like these guys a whole lot. I think we got a week off from UFC this week. And then when we get back to it the following week, we'll see if the tone has changed a little bit over the course of 14 days.
Now, the last thing I want to talk about, and before we got to move on, because there's some other things that we won't have a lot of time to touch on because we're heavily talking about this, is Dana White's kind of last quote, but one I think is kind of very, very interesting and meaningful for discussion purposes. Quote, he signs with the company and he's not even willing to fight their champion right now. He fought 3 times in the last 3 years, and it's been like 18 months since he's fought. From what I'm hearing, he's going to fight. He's not going to fight for another year. I think their last champion, or maybe their current champion, lost to Tabura. Then the champion now lost to Yuri Prohaska, who isn't even a heavyweight. Francis doesn't want to fight those 2 guys now. Am I the only one who thinks this whole thing is just a bunch of BS? That's my 2 cents. Okay, so I said we we're going to put a pin back in this pay-per-view super fight series. This is where it comes for full circle. And this comes where the risk question comes. Who would Francis fight? Is it true that he's saying he doesn't want to fight their heavyweight champion? Because their heavyweight champion is pretty badass. Let's be honest, right? Does he not want to fight him? Does he want these handmade opponents? I don't know. But that is very interesting if he's saying, like, listen, I'm not looking to fight your guys' champion. I'm looking to do my own little other thing in this pay-per-view super fight series. What say you, John Morgan?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard necessarily say that he doesn't want to, but I think that they're talking about bringing in other people, and that is a potential problem, Eric, because the whole thing about the PFL, their concept has always been, look, man, we take the politics out of this thing. We just set up a season. It's like the NBA. You got 82 games, play it out, get your seeds in the playoffs, and then go through the playoffs and see who gets the in, and that's the winner. It's not, well, the Grizz are going to go play the Knicks because the Knicks were talking trash about, and that's how we're going to set. It's not like that, right? You play things out, and that's the way the PFL has always been. But you look at the situation they're in right now. If I look at the heavyweight standings right now, the top 4 that we have in the PFL heavyweight standings, now, granted, they've only had 1 fight so far this year. They're going to fight again in June, and then they'll set the playoffs. But it's Dennis Goltsov, Maurice Green, Danilo Marcus, and Renan Ferreira. I mean, talented martial artists. I'm not trying to talk trash about these individuals as athletes or as fighters, but in terms of name value recognition, that you're willing to pay $50, $60, $70, whatever the price is going to be for this pay-per-view to fight Francis Ngannou, Do any of those fit the bill? And I'll go through the rest. I mean, you could Mateus Scheffel, Jorgen De Castro, Marcelo Nunes, Patrick Brady, Ante Delia, Jordan Heiderman. Again, no disrespect to any of them as mixed martial artists, as athletes, as fighters. They're going in there and doing it, so they deserve credit for that. But now we're bringing it back to the business side. Who's going to command that $50, $60, $70 pay-per-view price? And I don't know if the name's on the roster. So, I've heard a lot of people say Fabricio Verdum might be the answer. He's actually under contract with the PFL right now, and it is an intriguing matchup. I saw, Big Ben Rothwell put his hand in the air and say, hey, $2 million guarantee, I'll go do that. To name recognition as well. But any of these names that you're talking about bringing in from the outside, what message does that send to these people in your heavyweight roster that you already have that supposedly – they were just supposed to fight their season and win the tournament and become the champion. Why don't they get that opportunity? Especially, you'd have one thing. If it was going to happen this year, you could be like, we didn't know we were starting the season. You guys are already in the season. We didn't know we were going to have Francis. So it's a very unique situation. We're going to have to bring somebody in from the outside. But next is you guys. Now you don't even have that excuse. You're saying this is not going to be till next year. So how is whoever comes out of this tournament not going to get their feelings hurt a little bit by saying, wait a minute, I just fought through your whole season, and now the biggest payday comes up, and you're counting me out of that? Well, why did I win your season? So I think there's a possibility for some rough waters ahead in terms of this situation, how they kind of massage the relationship with whoever comes out of this thing as the heavyweight champ.
Now, I don't make an allegation here. It's not my intent, but if you do bring in somebody from the outside, say a Ben, even though Ben Rothwell is a bad man, let's say Verdum, who probably would have an extremely hard time taking him down. He ain't going to be able to stand up and strike with Francis Ngannou. That would be a tailor-made fight for Ngannou. Do you think the PFL would look at this, per your point earlier of saying, we know we're taking a loss, but we're just using it as a catalyst to get to where we eventually want to go, to set him up as like somewhat of a linear champion, right? And then him off doing his admin stuff with PFL Africa. I mean, do you think that's the trajectory in this? Because it's like, let's not give Francis the hardest fights, because there's a potential for us to lose the face of the organization and a face of the franchise. And like I said, I'm not making it just hit me now about, well, we are going to set something up for the future in life of Francis Ngannou after fighting as the face and an equity owner and the chairman and the advisory board guy and this, that, and the other. That could take a lot of hit if he, say, goes 0-2 in his 2 or 3 fight contract. We don't know.
Such a delicate balance to reach, because you're right. In heavyweight MMA, especially, anything can happen, right? Because everybody packs a punch, and one wrong move, you zig when you should have zagged, and you're knocked out unconscious, or you get choked out or whatever. So it could absolutely happen. And look, Francis has been off for a long time, and Francis is aging a little bit. So it's absolutely a very real possibility. But it's such a delicate line to balance for the PFL, because I do think they're going to realize that, hey, we're going to take a loss on this, but we're going to get interest. But we don't want to lose everything. Like, maybe we could sell a little bit. And if you don't put together a compelling matchup that people want to pay for, they're not going to pay for it. Bottom line, you're not going to generate any revenue whatsoever. And again, if they put together this pay-per-view that they're talking about, I mean, again, you got to pay Kayla Harrison. Imagine you got to pay Jake Paul. I mean, gosh, man, you're talking about a lot of expenditures there to try to generate some income. So, I think they would like to try to, there's no given in MMA. You can't, There's no such thing as a guarantee, but I think they probably would like to give them a favorable matchup. However, it's still got to be a matchup that people want to see and want to pay for. So,
but my bigger question do you think the PFL, albeit they're not setting fights up, they're not rigging fights, but giving favorable matchups to ensure that Francis Ngannou somewhat ends his career as a linear champion? The guy that never lost either one of the belts. He is the reigning defending linear champion. Now, what makes, Tyson Fury the linear champ is, he might not have the belt, but he beat the guy who held all the belts, and then he never lost it. So it makes him the linear belt, which would be the same thing that we're setting Francis Ngannou up to be. Do they want to ensure that he is the undefeated linear champ moving on into the next role? Hence the reason we're not going to put him against our champions. Hence the reason we're going to set these matchups the most favorably we can.
I think that would be ideal for him. You know what I mean? Because there's something to be said for going out on top. I mean, look at the reputation of George St. Pierre. Look at the reputation of Khabib Nurmagomedov. You know what I mean? Those guys went out on top. And because that, they're forever that guy. I hate to say it because I never want to make it sound like I'm talking bad about the guy, but Anderson Silva, a true legend of the sport, one of the greatest of all time. Prime Anderson Silva. Man, you remember how much did we love watching that guy? He was unbeatable.
Ain't no sunshine.
Oh, the best.
Gone.
But tell me the reputation. I mean, I don't think that he's held in the same regard as like George St. Pierre and Khabib Nurmagomedov because he took all those losses at the end. And there's a whole bunch of people that are new to the sport that only saw that era of Anderson Silva. So if you go out on top, you never had that kind of downslide in your career and you maintain that reputation. So I think they would absolutely love to do that. Now, here's the other flip side of it is, and you always see this with high-priced free agents going to another promotion. You know, look at like Sage Northcutt, Eddie Alvarez going to one championship. Even Demetrius Johnson, he's rebounded from it since. But there's the flip side. You know, exactly. You know, you come over here and you lose. On the one hand, people say, oh, man, but you paid all that money for that free agent and he lost. It's like, no. You know what we did? We just proved that our fighters on our roster are just as good as anybody on the UFC. We brought them over here and they lost. So what does that tell you about who we have? So there is that kind of fail-safe mechanism in there that if he does lose, they can say, told you, the UFC doesn't have all the best. We brought the guy that you guys said this was the guy. We went and got the guy and he came over here and lost. So what does that tell you about our guys? But I do think ideally, yeah, the guy wins 2 fights, Francis Ngannou. He rides off into the sunset as the lineal heavyweight champion that nobody can ever take away from him. He now helps promote the sport in Africa. He builds the continent. You know, I think that would be an ideal scenario for them.
It's definitely boom or bust kind of in this thing, the way I look at it. Hey, we've ate so much time. We don't have any time left. Let's just go through this really quick.
That's how intriguing it is, though. That's how intriguing it is.
Yeah, I anticipated this taking a lot of our time, not this much, but BMF title has been announced. In all of this, Dana White does what Dana White does. He creates headlines, not just this, but now it's getting me geeked up. Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje 2, July 29th, Salt Lake City. The BMF title is on the line. The brilliance of kind of the UFC, the marketing machine. Hey, let's steal back the headlines a little bit. BMF title on the line. I love this being a BMF title belt. I know it's kind of gimmicky. Some people say it's dumb and it's whatever. I love it because these are two BMFers.
Well, first of all, just the fight that we're getting, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje going back. I mean, how can you complain about that? I mean, that is 2 of the baddest dudes on the planet, 2 all violence guys that are going in there all action. We're going to get to see it. But I'm with you. I'll be honest. When they first announced the BMF title back in the day with Masvidal and Diaz, I'm like, what kind of goofy, gimmicky stuff is this? But then by the time we got there, you had this cool-looking belt, you know what I mean? You had The Rock in there, the hand. I mean, it's just fun. I would much rather have a BMF title that we all admit is just kind of a thing that we're making up, that we're having fun with, versus some kind of interim title that doesn't really need to be. You know, those interim titles that get invented that aren't really necessary, those bother the hell out of me, where it's like, come on. This, it's like, it's a little tongue-in-cheek. We're having some fun with it, and I'm okay with it. And again, maybe you don't like the belt, but you know you love the fight, man. I cannot wait to see these 2 dudes throw down.
I love putting a shiny new toy for the winner of that fight, too. I mean, just that's what I like. Yeah, I don't like an interim title belt, but, man, and it makes it 5 rounds. It's going to be main event, July 29th, Salt Lake City, and that crowd was electric. Imagine what they're going to be this time. Moving on, August 19th, Boston, Massachusetts. Aljamain Sterling, fast turnaround versus O'Malley. Right now, little bit of controversy, or I don't know, controversy, but a little bit of waves. You know, Aljamain Sterling on a podcast last week was saying, I'm hurt. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully I can make it. Dana White comes out and it's like, he's making it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? And then you find out that Henry Cejudo saw the reports that maybe Aljamain can't make it. And he rung up Dana and was like, well, we could put an interim belt on the line, me and Sean O'Malley. Yeah, it's interesting the way the whole thing plays out. The stuff that happens behind the scenes that doesn't necessarily get shared in whole, I think is what creates some of this confusion sometimes, where it's like, hey, listen, you know, we'd like to have you fight on this date. And it's like, yeah, I'm down for that. I just got to get cleared first. Well, the UFC, they hear, you're good to go. Let's go. we got to promote this thing. And if something happens, because it's easy to come back later and be like, oh, well, we were supposed to do it. But unfortunately, he couldn't get ready in time. But they got to keep the machine going, right? They got tickets to sell. They got venues to book. They got things to do. So they at least want to be able to pencil you into that position. And if you say you're in, you're in. I did see that Aljamain came out this weekend and said, hell with it. Let's just do July. How about that? Let's see if you're ready to run it. And Sean O'Malley said, no, I'm not ready to run it. I'll see you August 19th. So I'm glad they were going to see it. Man, the build up to this is going to be fun. The trash talk between these two is going to be good. And we got a lot of time till we get there. But just stylistically, the fight itself, dude, I'm loving it. That's going to be a great one.
And last but not least, we kind of talked about what does this mean with Conor McGregor in the testing pool. We thought the fight was made. It's not really made. Dana White comes out and says in the post-fight just this past weekend that McGregor-Chandler is going to be on. It is going to happen. Madison Square Garden, November, December. Now let's do the math. John Morgan is the one who called this one correctly. He says, hey, listen, I always said September was too early. I think it's going to be November, December, whenever that Madison Square Garden card is going to be. Now let's take it, right? June, July, August, September, October. 6 months is what? November. How much time do you need in the USADA testing pool, Mr. Morgan?
6 months.
Refresh our memory.
Months. 6 months.
Man, this guy is the best journalist in the game for a reason. What do you think about this? You think, but you said it could be November. It could be December.
I think what we're going to get is I always knew Conor was going to be either, and it just makes sense from a financial standpoint, Madison Square Garden or December in Las Vegas, because those are the two big financial, opportunities. I think what we're going to end up seeing, if everything happens the way the UFC wants to see it, is John Jones versus Stipe Miocic as the headliner in Madison Square Garden in November, and then Conor McGregor going at it with Michael Chandler in December in Las Vegas. I think that's what we're going to see. That's not etched in stone yet. That's not done. But if everything plays out the way they want it, I believe that's what we're going to see as our back-to-back pay-per-view headliners.
And that puts the USADA timeline into play that we all, right. You said he's not going to get any favors. I said he would. Check one for John Morgan. I don't know what I'm talking about.
There was just too much on the liner. Because, man, if I know Conor McGregor gets special treatment, deserves special treatment. He's the biggest star in the history of sport. By the way, the documentary that just came out, pretty good watch. I enjoyed it. It's a 4-part documentary on Netflix. It's worth a watch. He's the biggest star in the history of sport. But had he been given special treatment here, I just think it would have called into question the entire legitimacy of the USADA program with the UFC. And that's why they had to stick to their guns and say, no, you're going to do the 6 months. We can't do something special for you here.
Man, it was a fun, exciting episode. I can guarantee people are going to have stuff to say. So hit us up on Twitter. That's John Morgan _MMA. I'm E_Mac Life. Also, comment in the comments here. We love seeing them. All right. I know that I probably said some things a lot of people disagree with, kind of taken up for Dana White. But hey, listen, I got to respect somebody who's as transparent as he is. And I believe that he believes everything he says. So
100%.
All right, anything you got coming up exciting? Hey, listen, I know we didn't get into talking, and no disrespect, Mackenzie Dern, vicious performance this past weekend against Angela Hill. Just need to say it. Mackenzie Dern, you should fight Rose next. I would love to see that.
Yeah, that event was actually pretty fun. You're right. I mean, it's just the headlines this week were too big, but the event itself was pretty fun. There were some good performances on there. None the least of it was Mackenzie Dern. She's had some inconsistent performances over her career. You know, she admitted this was a tough one. She had to go through a divorce, which is never fun. Her coach was away for a while, helping out Luke Rockhold. So, I mean, it was just a lot going on. But, man, if she can fight like that every time, she will absolutely fulfill the potential that I think we always thought that she had. She looked incredible. Great performance. So, yeah, big win, and I would love to see her and Rose next. So, yeah, listen, non-UFC week this week, so a little bit of break for most, but I will be heading out to Philadelphia, 2300 Arena Saturday night. So if you want to still see some martial arts action, we've got Fury Professional Grappling 7. Joe Pyfer is in the main event. Obviously, everybody knows Joe Pyfer, old body bags, doing big things in the UFC. He's on loan from the UFC for us. He's going to grapple with Charlie Radke, Chuck Buffalo, the CFSC welterweight champion. That's our main event. CM Punk will be with me on the microphone. Those Fury Professional Grappling events, man, there's always a lot of fun. So UFC Fight Pass Saturday night. Man, sounds like a lot of fun. I am going to be the feature story in the men's Memphis Fitness and Health magazine. Wow. Talking about my cancer story, overcoming, doing some fighting, doing some jiu-jitsu. So I got to go do a photo shoot after this. Hence the reason the hair is done today. I like it. I'll share it with you guys online once it is complete, but it's going to be
Pretty fun. And I do got to say,
awesome.
Mackenzie Dern got that third stripe. She is a third-degree black belt. Her father, the legendary Megaton Diaz, gave her that third stripe. And it takes, what? Once you're black belt, I think it takes 3 years per stripe. It's pretty impressive.
To be there, it's amazing. I mean, she literally grew up on the mats, man. It's pretty incredible.
Man, crazy episode. Again, you can watch us here on YouTube, grindcitymedia.com. Listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Please comment in the sections. Give us a like, give us a review. Tell me why I'm crazy and tell me why John Morgan's always correct, because he usually is. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.